Hello! Today I'm going to be looking at this beautiful calligraphy set by Sennelier that my husband Nick got me for Christmas. I'm so excited to open this and check it all out. I'm just going to preface this video by saying that I am not an expert with calligraphy, so if you're looking for a calligraphy tutorial, this is not it. This is basically me experimenting with it. I'm a total novice and I just thought I would let you know before I get too much into this video that you're probably not going to learn very much from me, but this is just more of an experimentation and looking at calligraphy inks from an artist's point of view. So let's get into it. Let me slide it out of this sleeve and we'll take a look at this wonderful box. It's a beautiful wooden box and I'm just going to take this really reflective lid off because that's really annoying, isn't it? There we go. Now we can see what's in here. So just before I dive into the box, I've just flipped it over so you can see the back of it, and it's got basically all of the colours, a little bit about it, and a nice photo of what it actually looks like inside, which as you can see is exactly the same. Okay, so we have the pen holder, or the nib holder, 4 nibs, which if I can pick it up, it's got a bit of a scuff on there, which is annoying. They just slide inside there, like that. So that's quite handy. The nibs are in a size 1, a 3, no that's a 1, a 2, a 3 and a 5. Don't know where 4 went. And then there are 12 bottles of inks. Sepia, walnut stain, sanguine, bister, burnt sienna, deep green, opaque white, lemon yellow, vermilion, cobalt blue, silver and gold. So I have actually spent a bit of time using these. I was testing them out, but I did some reading afterwards, and apparently when you first get the nibs they are covered in a coating which you should actually remove. And one of the recommendations was to use some rubbing alcohol to remove it. So I'm going to do that now because I think it does affect the ink. It doesn't get the ink to stick very well, and I did notice that a bit. So all I've got is just a little cotton bud or Q-tip and some alcohol ink. I'll just gently take that out. I might just dip that into the bottle. Well, this stuff really stinks. It is almost 100% pure, this stuff, so it's very dangerous, very flammable. Do take care when using it. And I keep dropping them down there. How annoying is that? So all I'm going to do is just give it a bit of a wiping, and I will probably wash these in my sink just to make sure everything's come off it. I think you could probably just use a bit of dish soap as well, just to take off any of the factory oils that they use to keep them from going rusty or things like that. Okay, those are all nice and clean and dry. I did wash them a bit in a small dish with a little bit of soap in it and water, just to make sure that they are as clean as I possibly can get them. They've got different size nibs on the end, if you can see that. Let me hold them up. You can see that one's quite slim and this one is a very thick one. And this little dent in here, I think, is where the ink is supposed to collect, you know, when you dip it in, and that's where the ink stays so that it will feed down into the little gutter there. You can see there's a little join where the two pieces meet and that ink flows down into there and to the tip of it. So the number 1 is the widest nib in here and the 5 is the narrowest. So let's just take a quick look at some of the inks. They are in the most adorable little bottles here. How sweet are these? I found that these lids are an absolute nightmare to take off though. Unscrewing them, they are so tight. Like I finally got that one to go. There's the ink inside. Most of them are quite transparent. There are a couple over here which are opaque, and that includes the white, which you can see all of the pigment has settled on the bottom because they've been lying on their side, and you can see all of the liquid that's separated out from it. So when you shake these things, it does cause a lot of air bubbles, so I tend to prefer to mix them, and in order to do so you could use a toothpick or a skewer. I've recently found this very pointy sharp object, so I'm just going to stir this one up so we can see it a bit better. Okay, this lid is not coming off without some serious struggle, so what I have is one of these lid openers, and I bought this a while ago, last year sometime. It is so good for opening tiny lids. This one fits on, I just have to gently pull it a bit so that it will fit on the end, and then you just squeeze it, turn it, and off it comes. Saves your hands so much pain, I tell you. If you can find one of these, get one. They are so brilliant for taking off the lids off paint tubes and little bottles like this that have stubborn screw top lids. So you can see it's all congealed up there. I'm just going to move this box so I don't drop it on there, because that would be very devastating. And I'm just going to poke it right in and just scrape it off the sides gently. I will shake it a little bit once I've done this, but you really do need to dislodge the pigment, I find, before it will start to shake. These inks are completely waterproof and will not re-wet once they are dry, but you can mix them with water while they're in their wet stage. So as long as it's wet, you can wipe that off and wash it with water. As soon as it dries, it's not going to budge ever. These ones are like India ink, basically. It's the same sort of concept. And then another way you can shake it rather than going like that, which will put a lot of air bubbles in, is just kind of give it a roll between your hands. And I usually get some bubble in there. It's just the way of it, and you can tip it up and down. But just try not to shake it too hard, I think, is the best way to go. So you can see that's mixed right in, and that will stay suspended for a while, but because white pigment is opaque and heavy, it will split out, and so you probably have to keep doing this while you're using it, which is a bit of a nuisance, I must admit. Oops, and we've got a lovely bubble on the top. Let me just pop that. Yeah, there we go. So you can see there are some bubbles in there. They will pop over time, but you can see now that that is much more opaque and mixed in together. I find the worst ones are the golds and the silvers. Anything that's got mica in it is just going to drop to the bottom really quickly. Even once you've mixed it up, I noticed that the pigment just pretty much settles straight away down the bottom. So these are probably the most difficult ones to use. But pretty much all of the other colours in here are very transparent. I mean, the yellow, for example, I mean, look at that. And you can see right through the bottle. That one's the most noticeable. And the others are in darker bottles, so you can't see it. And I've got ink on myself. Joy! Let me show you the colours. I've already drawn them out because I was practicing using the pen before I actually started this video. I didn't want to start this not knowing anything, and I really just wanted to practice and make sure I could actually use the calligraphy set before I put it on camera. So what I did is I swatched out the colours, but I did it by doing some beautiful lettering. You can see that one got a bit wet and it's smudged. So we have the sepia and the walnut. As you can see, the walnut is quite a lot blacker of a brown than the sepia, which is a very warm brown. The sanguine is that lovely reddish blood sort of colour, like an English red or a Venetian red, something like that. Bista is kind of a cooler brown, and the burnt sienna I think is my favourite of them. I think that is such a beautiful colour. You could see how some areas are dark, and that's because I was finding that when I was dipping the pen, I'd get a lot of ink to start with and then it would run out. So you could see it on quite a few of them. My inability to make a nice even colour on the letters. Deep green is quite a bluish green almost. It's a lovely one. The yellow is beautifully bright and very transparent. We've also got vermilion leaning towards the orange side of the red. The cobalt blue is stunning as well. I really love this one. Such a beautiful blue. And then I've got the silver and the gold, which you can see have quite a lot of sheen on there. So those are the colours. I thought it would be more fun to write with them than actually just do a plain old swatch. So in one of my previous videos I covered a bottle with mermaid vinyls and I found this little tree of life, and I thought that this could be really fun to draw and maybe do some lettering in that circle. I've come up with a bit of an idea. I am going to redo this. This is my draft copy, and we're going to ignore the lettering on the outside because I don't like that. I decided afterwards that it would be better to write it around in the circle, so I basically just copied the design from this tree. Basically the concept is it's a tree of life. Art is life, for me at least, and life is also art. So I kind of came up with this thing. It's like art is life, is art is life, is art is life. And I just thought that would be really cool to write around the edges of it. This is just plain drawing paper. I don't even know what this paper is. It's just in my collection. I found a piece of my nice white Fabriano hot press paper, and I did a test on this paper before I'm doing the drawing just to make sure it's okay, and the ink looks pretty good on here. I really love this burnt sienna, and I think I'm actually going to colour it in the burnt sienna. I think it's really pretty. Now, I was thinking about doing something with the silver and gold, but these two are actually really hard to use, so I think that's going to be a future video once I've figured it out, because I want to do that on a black piece of paper. But I think today I'm just going to work with this ink because it's easier to manage, and I really need some more time to practice with this stuff. So I'm going to see what I can come up with today, and I really hope this turns out. So I'm on my light pad and I'm tracing it out using the compass, and that bit of green tape in the middle of the drawing is a brainwave I had early that morning where I folded up a piece of green tape and stuck it down and stabbed the compass needle into that. So it made a hole into the tape and not into the middle of my drawing. As you can see, it's perfect and it doesn't have a hole in the middle. So now I'm just quickly tracing around the outline of the tree, and I didn't film it because my head got in the way, but I also then traced the lettering, and some of it was a bit wonky, so I actually kind of redid it from scratch anyway, but you would have had all of this view of my head, so I figured I'd just cut that out from this, and I drew a little heart there. And here I am going into the drawing. I started off with the pen, but I decided I also wanted to use a brush, and honestly, I had no idea what I was doing with this. As you can probably tell, this is not really a calligraphy video in the end because I genuinely don't know how to do calligraphy properly. So I just made this up as I went along, and it turned out to be more of an artwork drawing, using the pens like dip pens rather than as calligraphy, although I did do the writing around the circle with the dip pen, so I guess that's technically calligraphy, but anyone who is actually a calligrapher will know that I had no clue what I was doing. Anyway, I still had fun and it turned out okay. I went over everything just with the plain burnt sienna, and after a while I decided that I found it just a little bit boring having the one colour, so I went over the tree with some of the gold. And I also got quite a few ink splatters all around the drawing because I was doing really well today, so I covered those with a bit of white. You can see in the bottom right hand corner my arm is covering it a bit. There is a nice brown mark there, and I did end up getting rid of that. I also splattered a bit of gold over the whole thing just to hide any of those tiny little errors, because that's what we do when we make art. We adapt and embrace the mistakes as part of the artwork, or at least that's what I like to do. I don't know about other people. Just a bit on the inspiration for this artwork. I was thinking about the phrase, don't live to work, only work to live. But because I've started doing art full time and it has kind of become my job, at least for the moment, doing YouTube, I am kind of living to work because I live to do art. It's something I really love to do. I think about it every day. Sometimes I'll go to bed really excited at the prospect of getting up the next morning to start a new project, and for me that is the most important thing, that if you can find the kind of job that you do want to get up for and you don't think the day before, oh my gosh, I've got to go back to work tomorrow, then it is something that you do live for, and I think that's a really positive thing. I mean, obviously you get jobs out there which you're doing basically to get paid and so you can live, and I've done a few of those jobs in my life. You know, it's something that you can work on, you leave at the door and you don't think about again until you go back to work. But art is far more immersive than that for me, and it's something that is a big passion, so I hope it's something that even if I decided to stop doing it as a job, so to speak, that I would still do art for fun, because I just love it so much, and there's so much potential to do all sorts of things with it, especially in this day and age when we have so many different art supplies and resources available to us. It just makes it so much easier to be able to access the ability to do art. I don't even know if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but I just thought I'd let you know that this is kind of what's stemmed this, that yes, art is life and life is art, because everything I look at I tend to think about what can I do to draw this or paint it. and it just makes me really happy, even though sometimes I don't quite always get it right. Although I think I did pretty darn well with these circles, because this was really hard staying within those lines, but I only made a few wobbly mistakes. I actually think it came out quite well. So I'll let you watch the rest of it, and I'll talk when I have finished the painting. Or is it a drawing? It's certainly not calligraphy. Okay, I'm gonna call it done. I think if I just mess with it anymore, it's just going to ruin it. I think the gold helped just give it a bit of sheen and interest. It's not my favourite thing in the world, but I do actually quite like the design, and I really like the lettering around it. I think that came out alright. I'm actually quite pleased with how that worked. It's a bit blobby in a few places, but it gives it a bit of character. I think I would love to do this design again on black paper with a silver ink or watercolor or something. So this is probably something I'm going to revisit in the future and do it again. Sometimes when you make an artwork, it doesn't come out quite as you want it the first time, so there's no shame in doing it again as far as I'm concerned. I can see the potential in this. I had a lot of fun with it. It was pretty tough, but it was an interesting experience, and I really would like to spend some more time practicing with my inks, so I may well make another video in the future once I've actually done some practice and probably a bit of online learning, just to figure out how to control the ink, because that's my biggest problem. Was I just kept getting it blowing out, and that is surprisingly hard to do. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was a bit of a mess, but it's always fun trying out new techniques and art supplies. It's not always a win, but you never get better at something until you actually give it a go in the first place. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I will see you all again in my next video, which will be really soon. I will swatch you later. Bye!